Hello, welcome to another edition of Bay Area CIL's Community Focus. My name is Catherine Jones and I'm the Executive Director. And it is with great pleasure that I introduce a member of our team, Jennifer Rooney. She is one of our supports planners. And today we're going to talk about how individuals with disabilities thrive within our community and live independently. And most importantly, how they overcome barriers in employment and also in education as well. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you, and it is my privilege and honor to be here to talk with you as well. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to enjoy a tremendous team.
Jennifer, one of our topics today is about living and thriving independently within the community. So could you share a little bit about yourself?
So I am one of 12 adopted brothers and sisters, originally from Korea, and we grew up in Pennsylvania. I also happen to have total blindness. From my time in Korea, I was adopted at age 2.5 and came through the agency called Health International, and I have been very fortunate and blessed to have been brought up here in the United States. I've gone through a regular public school system with my total blindness. The number one important value that I have learned and that I walk by faith and not by sight. And that means taking each moment at a time and embracing it, learning from it and growing from it. I have gone all the way through the public school system from preschool on through high school to earn a regular education and a diploma with honors, and then on to college to earn my social work degree, also with honors, and then my state certificate of social work for the state of Maryland. Mm-hmm. I have since been employed in the field of social work for 21 years following my graduation from California University of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. So what brought you to Bay Area CIL to become a supports planner?
So in my early career, it's amazing how life opens up opportunities and doors. Mm-hmm. And through my own journey as an employed social worker, from my early career on, I've always wanted to be a part of helping people to learn and grow and have the same opportunities that I've been given and blessed with. And secondly, I have been employed with various agencies. And what brought me to supports planning was the fact that I was able to work individually based on unique circumstances and meet the person where they're at and bring them into the community and the resources to them. Mm-hmm. So through my 21 plus years of experience, I wanted to share that experience as a supports planner to enrich their lives.
Okay, so what is a supports planning agency, and what specifically is your role as a supports planner within that agency?
So a supports planner agency helps to develop programs with the individual's input to help the person to live as independently and safely as possible in their home surroundings where they're the most comfortable, and then to integrate them into the community with those resources. And my purpose as a supports planner is to be that advocate for that person, linking them to those services, as well as helping them to realize and overcome any barriers and obstacles. There are more than one way to overcome any barriers. One of the important lessons I've always been taught is when somebody tells you you can't do something, there's a reason to show them that you can and how it is possible to overcome and meet those challenges and grow from it. Mm-hmm. And that's my role as a supports planner, is to help be that role model and that example to the individuals that I've had the pleasure to meet and work with.
And specifically, how do individuals become eligible for supports planning services?
Well, first of all, they have to be able to meet certain criteria, and as well as be eligible for Medicaid services.
Okay.
Which is a state-run federal program, and through those services they're also able to develop their plans with our support.
Okay, so these are individuals with disabilities living within our community?
Yes, they are.
And individuals transitioning out of nursing or rehabilitative facilities and or wanting to remain at home instead of transitioning into a nursing or rehabilitative facility.
Absolutely.
And so you're a strong role model for them in showing that it is possible to live independently in the community, and I'm sure you've offered many words of wisdom to help people along to meet some of the barriers that they've encountered And I know you've done an excellent job for the agency, for Bay Area CIL. We're really proud to have you on board. So if we go back a little bit to, you were talking about you went to public school.
Yes.
What were some of the barriers you encountered in public school, and was your education different from others that were in the classroom?
I would say the main difference is instead of using eyes, I use my ears and my fingers. I use my fingers to learn Braille, which, praise be to my parents, who have adopted and raised all of us. They have always had some form of Braille in the house growing up. I can remember that they would have tactile books and pictures, raised line pictures, and that's how I learned as a small child to fine-tune my fingers and learn to explore what my world would be like. As I was mature enough and ready for preschool at age 4, then I was able to learn more about what Braille was like. By nursery school, kindergarten, I'd say it took me about maybe 2 years to learn Braille efficiently. And then adding on contraction and numerical, and that Braille is, yes, to anybody it would look like a bunch of symbols and dots. However, as you learn it, it's like a foreign language. Each number, symbol, or letter stands for how the character is written. And so it's all about fine-tuning and learning what that means. There's so many ways to communicate. And through public school, the biggest barrier I would say was not being able to see a chalkboard or see someone's expression. However, that's where I learned through my parents and through other role models to listen with ears, great intently. I can pick up on a lot of other senses, and the nonverbal cues, I can pick up on those as well as using my hands to read Braille, which again, I learned very quickly. I've never had any special education per se. The adaptations I had was Braille itinerary learning, and that was through a consultant who would come in once or twice a week and would work with me on how to read Braille. And as technology advanced from middle school on, when the computers were very important, that was a godsend. And I can say even before then, I learned to use a regular typewriter, second and third grade. By then I mastered how to use a regular typewriter. And that's how, from then on, and when I hit 8th grade, 9th grade on through high school, I was able to do my regular term papers like anybody else on the computer and print them out and turn in the same work that my sighted peers did. Before then, everything was Braille, which was okay too, but I was always waiting on a translator to translate everything from Braille to print. But when computer technologies came about, it was great because I was able to turn in the same amount of work as anybody else. The other part was learning my surroundings through orientation and mobility. And I've had various, mainly through my parents, who taught me it's okay to explore. Use your hands, use your other senses to learn your environment. And that was also fine-tuned by mobility teachers and instructors who have worked with me in the past. And from then on to kind of just branch on, and that's what I mean by walk by faith and not by sight. Because I don't use my eyes to get around, but I use the rest of me, which is fine-tuning, and I orient myself. What I form is like a mental picture in my mind of where everything is at, and that's how I get around.
You made mention of a mobility instructor. What is a mobility instructor? What do they specifically do, and how did they help you with your environment and surroundings?
So the fancy word for that is orientation and mobility training. And what they do is they're trained in an area to work specifically with someone who's blind or vision impaired, how to navigate their environment safely, using the other senses, using what's around. And we learn specifics like landmarks versus clue marks, and what they are, and how to determine, like a change in a sidewalk, or a change from grass to curb, or listening for street patterns, using all your natural environment to learn how everything kind of fits together. Or say I'm in a building, well, how do I know where a bathroom is? What the orientation and mobility person does is would show me a couple times where everything's located, kind of like the layout of the building. And I was always encouraged to explore, so I would love to take advantage, and I used to be able to do that, and I still do on occasion. If there's a place I haven't been to before, it's fun to just explore and learn what's there.
Sure. Do you still receive services to help you in a new environment? For instance, you started with Bay Area CIL in January. Did you have anyone visit to help you navigate the physical surroundings?
I kind of had a little of both. I had a young fella who came down from the Department of Rehabilitation, and I explained to him what I was learning, where my, I want to say, weaknesses and strengths were in learning the building. And I'm pretty much a fast learner anyway. If somebody shows me once or twice how to get somewhere, I'm going to remember that. And the amazing thing is he also was vision impaired, so we kind of learned from each other. I learned techniques that I wouldn't have thought of before, just by the way to tap a cane and certain sounds that it gives off if you go by a certain door or certain texture. So it's more than one way to learn how to get around an environment. But other than that, I'd say co-workers, colleagues, I would follow them a couple times until I learned where everything was. So it was a combination of both. But the mobility, I call him the mobility person, but he came down a couple times, and I explained to him where I would like to learn a little bit more. For example, how to navigate more outside around the surroundings if I wanted to take a walk on a nice day, which that's one of my hobbies. I love to be out taking a walk, just enjoying the nice weather.
Sure. Now, you mentioned that you're a licensed social worker.
Yes.
And that you have your bachelor's degree in social work as well.
Yes.
Can you share with us some of your professional work experiences that you've had thus far?
So I started out right out of college well, first of all, the interview process and obtaining that first job was quite challenging because not only was I just a young person just out of college, but secondly, I happened to have blindness. And when I would go through interviews, I kind of mixed and I learned from every experience, I'll say. And naturally, when I would go into an interview, I thought I could just kind of go in like anybody else and answer the questions. And that's where I learned, well, maybe that wasn't the best way to go about that. But I wouldn't have learned that had I not have experienced it.
So the people that you were going in for an interview for were not aware that you were blind?
Correct.
Okay. And why would you change that? Why would you want the interview team to know up front that you're blind? What difference would that make?
The important part is, number one, not to let any kind of disability or limitation define who I am as a person. That number one, yes, I'm a human being who is capable and who has overcome and who has achieved an education, a professional level education, and earned that degree. And that secondly, I have had work history, and I hope to be able to share that with you to help, or with any organization, to be an asset to that organization. So that's what I've learned over time through multiple interviews before I actually received my first hire or my first full-time employment, was to say I happen to have a blindness or a vision impairment. And then the important part is to back that up with, however, that doesn't define who I am. This is where I am in life, and this is where I have gotten.
And so what was your first professional position?
I was a fill-in social worker at a local blind association in Pennsylvania. And then from then on, my first full-time work was with an adoption agency, in fact, the agency that placed me for adoption. And I did a lot of the child searches, and once I received the home studies from the parents, the families, I was part of their trainings. And it was always amazing to sit through and listen to each of the families and where their strengths and where their challenges were, but to be part of that, and very rewarding to see a child have the same opportunities I've been given to be placed in a permanent loving home and not ever have to move again or be in a foster care system. But it was all about that permanence. And I did that for about 3.5 years. And then after then, I was offered a wonderful opportunity down here on the Eastern Shore at another organization for 17 years. And then I came and joined you all in January, with another fantastic and wonderful organization. And I want to thank each and every employer who has offered me and allowed me the opportunity to be part of their teams as long as I've been. And I take each and every lesson and valuable, important value with each and every career opportunity I've had.
And you've made mention that technology has been an integral piece to your success in education and also in your professional career. I see that you've brought a couple things for our viewing audience to see. One looks like it's a Braille refresher. Could you show what this does, and or just explain what a Braille refresher does?
So what this is, it's called actually the Focus 40 Blue. What I have is a regular computer back at my office or a laptop, and what it does is it connects with the computer itself. And if anybody can see, there's a Teflon keyboard. I call it a keyboard, but it's a regular traditional Braille keyboard, which I find it quicker just to use the typewriter board, the regular computer board too, because I kind of do everything fast. And But what happens with this Teflon is it moves along with the screen. So everything that's on the screen I can feel with my fingers in Braille. Plus, use the screen access program, which reads it out loud. So say I need to fine tune something, or I'm reading a number off to somebody through a website, or for whatever reason I needed to fine tune or give a specific detail, I can use my fingers and read what's up on the screen and tell that to somebody else or share that information.
Okay, and I see that you've brought a sample of what can be done with a Braille printer. Would you like to show? And I can take the Braille refresher.
Okay, so what this is I have a couple of ways that I Braille. I call it old school. I still use the slate and stylus. Not only do I use it if I'm writing a couple notes to myself, but I also use it for labeling. I know if you see around the office and people's mailboxes, they'll have little Braille labels on it. That's how I know whose is whose. So I'm not putting the wrong person's mail in the wrong mailbox. So that helps. I've also labeled the microwave if I needed to use something, and I know exactly where the stop and stop buttons are and the different numbers.
Okay. So you can punch out each letter?
I sure can. And the way, what I talk about are the holes pre-cut, if you see in here, these indentations.
Yes.
And the way it all looks like a bunch of 6-cell dots, but again, how it's written is based on a number, letter, or a word, depending on the configuration of the 6 dots.
Okay.
At home, I also have a Braille printer, which is pretty cumbersome, and I can type anything into a regular Word document or into a computer and cut it and paste it into this Braille program. I still use it's called Duxbury, and what that is a Braille embossing program. And you can cut it and paste it and then hit the function to translate it from print into Braille, and then I hit my print button and it prints it onto the Braille embosser, which sounds like popcorn if you've ever heard, kind of, but it's a little bit louder. That's why I keep it at home.
Okay, all right.
And then it can print out the pages just like what I have in front of me.
And what other technologies do you use to help you to level the playing field for you as a professional?
I'm very dependent on I call it JAWS, but what it is Job Access for Windows. And it's a very popular screen reading program amongst those of us with vision impairment, blindness. And what that is a talking program. It costs about I'd say reasonably priced. It's a little expensive, but it's definitely worth it to be able to keep up with everybody else. And it updates anywhere from every 2 to 3 months, maybe a little more often than that.
Okay. And what does it specifically do?
It reads everything that's on the screen, just like my refreshable Braille does. However, it reads it out loud. Like if I go to a website, it'll read everything for me, and it'll. It's just a matter of learning the different. If it's some websites are set up differently, and it's just a matter of fine-tuning JAWS to work with that website and vice versa. But I can get to different form fields and fill them out and submit them. If I'm in a website and it calls for certain documentations that we as supports planners have to submit, or any kind of reports or anything that the state would need. So what I'm able to do using my JAWS combined with my Braille refresher, or refreshable Braille, is fill out the same information and then submit it to the other worker from the other end, or the health department nurse.
And that truly is revolutionary.
It sure is. It's come a long way.
And to learn a little bit about how you're navigating the world through technology, anybody who's interested in our community to learn more about the technology, assistive technology that's out there, we welcome them to come to Bay Area CIL for a demonstration. We know many of the local colleges and universities have popped by, and Jennifer's been an excellent guest speaker in demonstrating, how she's navigating the world as a professional in the community. And I'm sure you've touched many people's lives with your story and your achievements. Would you like to share any stories with our audience?
So I would say, to sum up real quickly, because I do tend to talk, but the most important thing is showing the people that no matter what kind of limitations we have, that there are ways to overcome and achieve. And I would have to say, in recollection, a couple of the opportunities I've seen or have been part of is showing somebody how my technology works. To even print out a simple document. It was great to have that class, I believe it was a few weeks ago, who came in, of young students.
We had a youth vocational transition class come in a little workshop, and they were youth within our community with varying disabilities.
Absolutely.
And you gave them a great pep talk about to continue on.
Yes.
And to achieve what they want to achieve in life. And you did an excellent job in doing so.
Thank you. And it was great to be able to show their families too, or any supports who were with them, that there is technologies out there, and this is how it can be done. We might go about it a different way, however, the same job is able to be accomplished.
Well, we've heard about Jennifer as a professional, and we've heard about your accolades in the world of academia and your licenses. What other hobbies or interests do you have?
So I would say one of my hobbies is I play the violin on the side. I took formal lessons for 1 year back in elementary school. And when I say on the side, I might take it out maybe once or twice a year. I used to have a running joke of, okay, I'll take it out of my case and dust it off today and play a couple tunes. But there is a small repertoire of tunes I do enjoy practicing once in a while. And when I say practicing, I learn by ear. And if I play something over and over repeatedly enough, then I remember how it goes. And that's like pieces to a puzzle. And I really enjoy the sound of a violin and being able to sing that same praise and worship and just to share that opportunity with other people. That's one of my hobbies. I also enjoy reading. And how I read is I download books on my iPhone, which I'm also attached to some of the time. And the iPhone, I use the voiceover feature, and I download books off of Amazon.com quite a bit. I also belong to the Audible.com also, and that's another site where there are Audible books that you can download. And I like to read a variety of books, mainly like historical, travel, and adventure books. Stories about people who have overcome and people who are learning or out there experiencing. And so I would say that's just a few of my hobbies. I also enjoy walks, especially when the weather's nice.
Sure.
Just kind of like going out and exploring.
Sure. What are some of your day-to-day challenges that you still face in living independently?
Well, I'd say one of the basic ones is, naturally if I drop something, of course I can't, it's just one of those things that you just have to find it. That's a real simple one. But I'd say, sometimes transportation can be a bit challenging because not everything can be planned 24 hours in advance.
Okay. How do you now get to work and back?
So I use Shore Transit, which is a very wonderful system. I've thrived with their services as well because not only have I used them to get to work, to get to the grocery store, to see my family, they're a great and fantastic service. And I'm sure some people are wondering, as a supports planner,
you make quarterly contacts. You
exactly.
go to the consumers'
I actually go to their
homes.
homes, and they do live quite a ways out sometimes, where a bus might not be able to go, or sometimes I might need to see them the same day, or an emergency might come up. And as anybody else who works with any of my colleagues, I would want the same responsibility that anybody else has.
Sure.
So what I have, and I've been very fortunate, is I have a couple of drivers who I hire to be my transportation on days that I need that kind of assistance.
Okay. To be able to go to the consumers' homes and they wait for you
They
while
do.
you're inside doing an assessment or
Absolutely,
assisting? Okay.
because some consumers might need me to stay a little bit longer, and then some consumers, they might be ready for me to leave after 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
It's all based on their needs and what their desires are. And that's why I'm very fortunate to have these drivers who I know from other connections who are willing to work for me. And so that's worked out really well.
And I've got to ask you this question. What are your thoughts on a driverless car?
I will be in first in line
How will
as
that
soon as
change
I
your
get
life?
wind that they are available, because I will have it'll open up so many doors
Yeah.
that transportation-wise I probably wouldn't have realized were available.
Yeah, and as a seeing individual, I take for granted that I can get in my vehicle and go wherever I want to go at any time, and you would have to have arrangements made through
Absolutely.
short transit or through your personal driver
Yes.
to get from point A to point B. So how important is it to you to have your family and friends and colleagues support you in your life as an independent professional?
My family has been my number one support, allies, and backbone.
Mm-hmm.
If it weren't for them, I would not be where I am today or the person who I've become today.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks be to God, I will say, for both my mom and dad, and my father, who still is with us, and I go to him for advice all the time. I run ideas by him all the time, and my sisters and my brothers and sisters. We're all a team. And I'd say my closest friends, we kind of all rely on each other for that support and that encouragement and that moral support that, yes, you're doing a great job, or here's where I could have tried something a little bit different. They might have ideas that I would have never even thought of.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because some days kind of are run together, and I might overlook something or an idea that I hadn't tried before.
Well, so family is very important to you, and I can see that. Same with the colleagues that you work with, the other supports planners within the agency, and I know you have lots of friends and volunteers that help you from within your church community as well. But to sum up today's show, what would be the top reasons why an individual with a disability should continue to seek their own independence? What 3 reasons?
I would say the most important reason is their self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
To realize that they are capable to overcome barriers, and that there are resources out there to help them to become more independent.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, everybody, no matter what condition they're in, communication is very important. And through that communication, they have a desire, like I do, like anybody does, to give back to the greater society
Mm-hmm.
in whichever capacity they are able to.
Mm-hmm.
And thirdly is to be the part of that greater society, and integrated, fully integrated.
Well, Jennifer, I just want to thank you again for being on today's show and sharing your personal experiences and your journey to overcoming so many barriers. Bay Area CIL is so proud to have you be a part of their team. You've been an excellent role model for the community, and I know you'll be an excellent role model for our viewing audience on this show. Thank you so much.
And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for watching Bay Area CIL's Community Focus, where every day is Independence Day. We hope you tune in for our next program. And most importantly, thank you for making us part of your day.